Varric stared at the assignment on his datapad, his skin turning a dull shade of grey, a sure sign of stress in his species. His two hearts thudded in syncopation as he read the destination over and over, hoping it would change. It didn't. The Interstellar Shipping Union had assigned him the Earth route. Earth, he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. The mere mention of the planet sent chills down his spine. Every spacer in the galaxy had heard stories of the humans, the apex predators of their world. Known for their reckless bravery, violent history, and unyielding resilience, they were both admired and feared in equal measure. "I can't do this," Garrick said aloud, pacing back and forth in his small cargo office. The room, normally a place of solace, felt like a prison. His supervisor, Kale, looked at him with an exasperated expression. "You don't really have a choice, Garrick," Kale said, folding his arms across his broad chest. Kale's scales shimmered with the faint green hue of calm, a stark contrast to Garrick's panicked aura. "The Earth route is high danger, yes, but it's also high pay. You need this." "But the stories, the humans, they're relentless. Didn't you hear what happened to John's crew when they landed in, what was it called, Brazil? They were swarmed by insects the size of small dogs." Kale sighed, rubbing his temples. "Yes, I've heard the stories, and I've also heard that the humans are some of the best trading partners in the galaxy. They've adapted to that death trap of a planet and thrive there. Their technology, their resourcefulness, it's unmatched. That's why the pay is so good for the Earth route." Garrick wasn't convinced. He'd heard too many horror stories. "Kale, I've only been a trader for a few cycles. This is too much. I was expecting to haul cargo between star systems, not drop into a war zone." "It's not a war zone. You're exaggerating," Kale said, chuckling slightly. "Besides, it's just one trip. Do this and your debt is cleared. You can retire to a peaceful life on one of the outer colonies. Isn't that what you want?" Garrick paused, the thought of clearing his debt momentarily calming his nerves. But then the word Earth flashed in his mind again, bringing back the panic. Still, he knew Kel was right. The Interstellar Shipping Union wasn't known for its generosity. Declining this assignment would mean a much worse fate, a lifetime of low-paying, high-risk routes in the fringe systems. At least Earth offered danger with a reward. Sighing in resignation, Garrick finally nodded. "All right, I'll do it. But if I die, I'm haunting you for the rest of your cycles." Kel grinned, his scales brightening. "You'll be fine. Just keep your wits about you, and you'll get through it. Humans aren't as bad as the stories make them out to be, mostly." Garrick groaned, but didn't argue further. He gathered his gear and made his way to the docking bay where his ship, the Nebula Serpent, awaited. The cargo ship was old, a bit too old for his liking, but it had gotten him through countless interstellar routes without fail. He hoped it would do the same for this one. As he approached the ship, a message pinged on his datapad. A new co-pilot had been assigned to him for this route, Kira, an AI system designed to assist with high-danger missions. Garrick had never worked with an AI before and wasn't particularly thrilled about the prospect, especially since Kira had been programmed with extensive knowledge of human culture. Great, he thought, more human nonsense to deal with. The cargo bay doors hissed open, and Garrick stepped into the familiar dim light of the Nebula Serpent. He dropped his gear in the cockpit and slumped into the pilot's chair. Just as he was about to run the pre-flight checks, a smooth, feminine voice echoed through the ship's comm system. "Hello, Captain Garrick. I am Kira, your assigned co-pilot for this mission. I have reviewed the route and the human customs database. If you need any advice on Earth culture, feel free to ask." Garrick sighed heavily. Just help me get there in one piece." "As you wish, Captain." The engines roared to life, and the ship hummed with energy as it prepared for the journey to Earth. Garrick felt his stomach knot up as they ascended from the docking bay and into the vast expanse of space. The thought of facing humans sent waves of dread through him, but the hefty payout lingered in the back of his mind. This was it. His fate was sealed. He was going to Earth. The nebulous serpent hummed steadily as it soared through the cold expanse of space. Garrick sat in the cockpit, anxiously running his fingers along the controls. The thought of Earth loomed heavy on his mind, and even the familiar rhythms of space travel couldn't calm him. His co-pilot, Kira, remained silent for most of the journey, observing his actions but offering little commentary. Just as Garrick began to settle into the routine of flight, the ship jolted suddenly, nearly throwing him from his seat. A deep groan echoed through the hull, and the console lights flickered for a moment before stabilizing. His heart skipped a beat. "Kira, what was that?" Garrick's voice was taut with worry. "Minor turbulence in the FTL corridor," Kira responded calmly. "It's nothing to be concerned about, Captain." Garrick wasn't convinced. He pulled up the diagnostics, scanning for any issues with the ship's systems. Sure enough, several warning lights blinked on the screen. A malfunction in the engine coolant system, a slight imbalance in the FTL drive. None of it was catastrophic, but it was enough to send Garrick into a mild panic. "We need to stop," Garrick insisted. "We can't make it all the way to Earth like this." Kira paused for a moment, likely calculating the risks. "There is a nearby station, Triton Station. We can dock for repairs. It's the last stop before Earth." "Fine," Garrick muttered, rubbing his temples. "Set a course for Triton Station. Let's just get this over with." As the ship veered toward its new destination, Garrick tried to calm his nerves. He'd dealt with worse mechanical issues before, but the added stress of heading to Earth made every little glitch feel like a death sentence. The ship's AI, though efficient, didn't help matters with her constant references to Earth and its unpredictable inhabitants. "Captain," Kira said, interrupting his thoughts, "would you like me to provide you with further information about Earth's human population? It may help alleviate your concerns." "Absolutely not," Garrick snapped, his voice sharper than intended. "The less I know, the better." Kira didn't respond, but Garrick could sense the A's subtle disapproval. He was already dreading the moment when he would have to interact with humans. Everything he'd heard painted them as volatile, aggressive creatures, capable of great kindness, perhaps, but equally capable of violence. And that was what terrified him most. The nebulous serpent emerged from FTL travel, and Triton Station loomed ahead, a large metallic structure suspended in the vastness of space. It was a busy hub, the last major checkpoint for ships heading into human territory. Garrick breathed a sigh of relief as they approached. "Docking clearance granted," Kira informed him. "Proceed to Bay 14. The ship slid into its docking position with a metallic clang. Garrick leaned back in his seat, grateful for the momentary reprieve, but his relief was short-lived. He glanced at the ship's external sensors and noticed a human vessel docked just a few bays over. "Great," he thought, "just what I needed." He had barely set foot on the station when he was greeted by the sight of a human. She stood tall, her posture confident, with sharp, intelligent eyes that immediately assessed him. Her presence exuded authority, and Garrick instinctively took a step back. "Captain Maya Thorne," she introduced herself, her voice steady and commanding. "You're the trader on the Earth route, right?" Garrick swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak. "Yes, I'm Garrick. I just need some repairs before I head to Earth." Maya raised an eyebrow, clearly amused by his hesitation. "First time dealing with humans." "Is it that obvious?" Garrick muttered. Maya chuckled, a sound that sent a shiver down Garrick's spine. "Don't worry, we don't bite. Most of the time." She winked playfully, but Garrick wasn't sure if she was joking or being serious. As they walked through the station, Garrick couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between the humans and the other species present. The humans moved with a sense of purpose, their expressions hardened, but not unfriendly. They were direct, efficient, and unbothered by the chaos around them. It was as if they thrived in environments that would send others running for cover. Maya noticed Garrick's unease and smiled. "Look, I get it. Humans have a reputation. But trust me, We're not as bad as the stories make us out to be. I've heard about Earth's challenges, Garrick said carefully. It sounds like a death trap. It can be, if you're not careful, Maya admitted. But that's what makes it home. We've adapted, evolved to survive. And now, we've made Earth one of the most advanced planets in the galaxy. Kira, who had been silently listening through Garrick's comlink, chimed in. Captain Thorne is correct. Humanity's ability to overcome adversity is unparalleled. They have survived extreme climates, war, and disease. Their resilience is a key factor in their dominance. Garrick shot a look at the comlink on his wrist. You're not helping, Kira. Maya laughed, the sound somehow comforting despite his nerves. You'll be fine. Just stick to the spaceports and avoid the wildlife. Earth's not as scary as it sounds. And hey, if you ever run into trouble, just find a human. We're pretty good at getting out of tight spots. Garrick nodded, though he wasn't entirely convinced. Maya's words had done little to quell his anxiety, but at least she didn't seem hostile. Maybe humans weren't all that bad, maybe. After a few hours of repairs, the Nebula Serpent was ready to continue its journey. As Garrick prepared to leave Triton Station, Maya approached him one last time. Good luck out there, she said, her tone sincere. And remember, humans may be tough, but we're not your enemies. Garrick offered a weak smile in return. Thanks, I think. With the ship systems back online, Garrick and Kira resumed their course toward Earth. The vastness of space stretched before them, and Garrick couldn't shake the feeling that he was hurtling toward a place he wasn't ready for. Kira, he said softly, staring out into the void, just get me through this. One trip, that's all I need. As you wish, Captain, the air responded, but there was a slight pause before she added, though I believe you may find Earth enlightening. Garrick sighed, the weight of the journey ahead pressing down on him. The next leg of the trip would take him into the heart of human territory, and despite his fears, there was no turning back now. The journey toward Earth felt longer than usual for Garrick, each passing moment weighed down by his growing anxiety. The Nebula Serpent hummed steadily as it moved through space, the stars streaking past as they neared their destination. Every now and then, Garrick would glance nervously at the navigation console, his mind constantly racing with worst-case scenarios. Approaching Earth's outer defense perimeter in 5 minutes, Captain, Kira's voice chimed in over the ship's comm. It is customary to request clearance before entering their controlled space. Garrick nodded, feeling a lump form in his throat. Right, clearance. His voice wavered slightly as he opened a channel to Earth's orbital control. The last thing he wanted was to be mistaken for a threat and vaporized by human defense systems. This is Garrick of the Nebula Serpent, he said, his voice tense. Requesting clearance to approach Earth for cargo delivery. There was a brief silence on the other end, and Garrick's stomach tightened with fear. But then a voice crackled through the comm. Nebula Serpent, this is Earth Orbital Control. You are clear for approach. Docking coordinates are being transmitted. Welcome to Earth, Captain Garrick. The casual nature of the response didn't calm Garrick's nerves. He stared out at the planet as it came into view, a glowing blue and green sphere suspended in the void. Earth looked serene from this distance, almost beautiful, but Garrick knew better than to be fooled by appearances. Kira, let's get this over with, he muttered. As you wish, Captain, Kira responded, her voice cool and efficient. The ship descended toward Earth's atmosphere, and Garrick could see the sprawling cities below, connected by vast networks of lights and highways. It looked chaotic, even from orbit, and Garrick couldn't help but marvel at how the humans thrived in such an environment. As they approached New Sydney, one of Earth's largest spaceports, the landing gear engaged with a gentle thud. The docking clamps locked the Nebula Serpent into place, and Garrick exhaled slowly, trying to steady his breathing. He had made it to Earth in one piece. Now came the hard part. Welcome to Earth, Captain, Kira said. Would you like me to assist with the unloading process? Yeah, Garrick said, wiping his hands nervously on his flight suit. Let's get it done quickly. The cargo bay doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing the bustling spaceport. Garrick stepped onto the platform, instantly overwhelmed by the sheer scale of activity around him. Humans, aliens, and machines moved about in a coordinated chaos, each individual focused on their task, yet somehow the entire scene flowed like a well-oiled machine. Garrick's gaze was drawn to a human standing by one of the cargo loaders. She was tall, with short cropped hair, and a bright smile that seemed out of place amid the noisy, frantic surroundings. She waved as she approached. "Hey there, you must be Garrick," she said, her voice cheerful and energetic. "I'm Sarah, the engineer assigned to help you unload." Garrick blinked, surprised by her friendliness. "Ah, yeah, that's me." Sarah grinned and patted one of the crates waiting to be loaded onto a hoverlift. "Don't worry, we'll get you unloaded in no time. You're just in time, too. The spaceport's been crazy busy this week." Garrick watched as Sarah expertly guided the hoverlift under one of the cargo crates, her movements fluid and precise. He couldn't help but be impressed by her efficiency. It was clear she had done this 100 times before. "So," Sarah said as she worked, "first time on Earth?" Garrick hesitated. "Yeah, first and hopefully last." Sarah chuckled. "Let me guess, you've heard the stories about us, haven't you? That we're a bunch of crazed savages running around on a death world." Garrick shifted uncomfortably. "Something like that." "Well, we do have our fair share of dangers," Sarah admitted. "But we're not so bad once you get to know us. Earth's tough, but so are we. That's how we've made it this far." Garrick didn't know how to respond. His entire life, he had heard terrifying tales of Earth and its people, stories of humans surviving extreme environments, battling each other in wars, and taming creatures that no sane being would go near. But here was Sarah, smiling and laughing as if none of that mattered. Sarah seemed to sense his unease. "Look, I know it can be a lot to take in. Earth isn't exactly the easiest place to live, but we've adapted. It's what we do best. And honestly, we kind of like the challenge." Garrick found himself nodding, though he still felt out of place. There was something about the humans that both fascinated and frightened him. They were survivors, but not in the desperate, clinging way he had imagined. They embraced their world, thrived in its chaos, and somehow found joy in it. As the last of the cargo was loaded, Sarah turned to Garrick and flashed another bright smile. "All done. See, that wasn't so bad." Garrick managed a small smile in return. "Thanks, Sarah. You've been helpful." "Anytime," Sarah said, giving him a playful salute. "If you ever need help again, just let me know. And hey, maybe next time you'll get to explore a bit. There's a lot more to Earth than just the spaceports." "I think I'll pass on that," Garrick replied, though there was a small part of him that was curious. As Garrick made his way back to the Nebula Serpent, he found himself reflecting on his encounter with Sarah. For all his fears and anxieties, the humans he had met so far were nothing like the monsters he had imagined. They were strong, yes, tough and resilient, but they were also resourceful, intelligent, and surprisingly kind. "Kira," he said as he settled into the pilot's seat, "what do you think of humans?" "They are a remarkable species," Kira replied. "Their ability to adapt and survive in extreme conditions is unparalleled. You could learn much from them." Garrick frowned. "Learn from them? Like what?" "Perhaps that fear is not always rational," Kira said, her voice calm and measured. "And that sometimes the greatest strength lies in facing what we fear most." Garrick leaned back in his seat, staring out at the bustling spaceport. He wasn't ready to admit it, but maybe, just maybe, Kira was right. Humans were still dangerous, still unpredictable, but they were also something else. He wasn't sure what that something was just yet, but he had a feeling he was going to find out soon enough. The Nebula Serpent had barely left the orbit of Earth when the warning lights on the control panel flared to life, bathing the cockpit in a harsh red glow. Garrick's heart skipped a beat, his pulse quickening as he scanned the readouts. The ship shuddered violently, jerking him in his seat. "Kira, what's going on?" Garrick's voice trembled, already fearing the worst. "Scanners detect an unidentified vessel approaching at high speed," Kira reported, her tone remaining eerily calm. "Based on its trajectory and energy signature, it appears to be a pirate ship." Garrick's stomach dropped. Pirates. He had heard of them terrorizing Earth's shipping lanes, preying on traders and smugglers alike. His ship was old and barely armed. He didn't stand a chance in a direct fight. "Do we have any options?" Garrick asked, his voice tight with fear. He could feel the panic rising in his chest, threatening to overwhelm him. "We could attempt to outrun them," Kira suggested, "though their vessel appears to be faster and more maneuverable than ours." The ship jolted again as a blast from the pirate vessel's weapons struck the shields. Garrick gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles turning pale. Running wasn't going to work. Fighting wasn't an option either. He was trapped. "I can't believe this is happening," Garrick muttered under his breath. "We just left Earth. They can't be this bold." "Pirates targeting Earthbound vessels is not uncommon," Kira said, her voice still unnervingly steady. "However, their actions suggest desperation. They may be after your cargo." The idea of being captured by pirates was almost as terrifying as landing on Earth. Garrick knew that many traders who fell into pirate hands were never seen again. He didn't want to think about what would happen if he were caught. Before he could respond, another blast rocked the ship, and the control panel flickered. The shields were weakening. Garrick cursed under his breath, his hands trembling as he tried to steady the ship. He wasn't a fighter, he was a trader, and he wasn't prepared for this. "Captain, we are receiving a transmission from the pirate vessel," Kira announced. Garrick hesitated, his mind racing. What did pirates want to say? Were they offering a chance to surrender? Or were they just toying with him before the final blow? "Put it through," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The comm crackled to life, and a harsh, raspy voice filled the cockpit. "Trader vessel, you are in the sights of the Garath Raptors. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded, or be destroyed. Resistance is futile." Garrick's throat tightened. The Garath Raptors were notorious in this region, vicious and merciless, with a reputation for leaving no survivors. His mind raced, searching for a way out, but his options were limited. "Kira, can we do anything to defend ourselves?" Garrick asked, his voice shaky. "Our weapons are limited," Kira replied, "but we can attempt to buy time by jamming their targeting systems. It may give us a few extra minutes." "Do it," Garrick said through gritted teeth. "We need all the time we can get." As Kira activated the jamming signal, Garrick's ship swerved and dipped in an attempt to avoid further fire. But he knew it wouldn't be long before the pirates overwhelmed them. The ship shuddered again, and the sound of straining metal filled the air. Garrick's fear was nearly paralyzing now, his breaths shallow and quick. Then, without warning, another blip appeared on the radar, a larger vessel moving fast and closing in on their position. "Kira, what's that?" Garrick asked, squinting at the console. "Scanning. It's a human defense ship," Kira said, her tongue shifting slightly. "They are hailing us." Relief washed over Garrick, but it was quickly replaced by uncertainty. Human warships were known for their immense firepower, but he wasn't sure if they would intervene in time. The pirates, sensing the new arrival, fired another shot, shaking the Nebula Serpent violently. "Put them through," Garrick said, his voice hoarse. The screen flickered, and the face of a human soldier appeared. His expression was focused, intense, but there was something reassuring in his presence. He wore the dark uniform of Earth's orbital defense fleet, and his eyes gleamed with calm confidence. "This is Lieutenant Orin of the Earth Defense Fleet," the man said, his voice steady. "We've picked up your distress signal, and we're moving to intercept the pirate vessel. Hold your position." Garrick exhaled sharply. For the first time since the attack began, he felt a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," he stammered. We can't hold them off much longer." "You won't have to," Orin replied. "Stay out of the line of fire, and we'll take care of the rest." The screen cut off, and Garrick watched in awe as the human battleship surged forward, its weapons systems coming to life with a brilliant flash. The pirate vessel, realizing it was outmatched, attempted to flee, but it was too late. In a series of precise, devastating strikes, the human ship disabled the pirate craft, leaving it adrift in space. "Pirates neutralized," Hera confirmed. "The human vessel has successfully engaged and incapacitated the enemy." Garrick slumped back in his seat, his whole body trembling with relief. He had never seen such efficiency, such precision. The humans had arrived just in time, and they had dealt with the pirates with ease. It was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. A moment later, Lieutenant Orin's voice came through the comm again. "The pirate vessel is disabled. We'll escort you to the nearest gate to ensure your safe passage. Earth takes care of its traders." Garrick couldn't believe it. After everything he had feared about humans, they had saved him, without hesitation, without asking for anything in return. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Garrick said, his voice still shaky. "I don't know what we would have done without you." "Just doing our job," Orin replied. "Humans might have a reputation, but we protect our own, and anyone under our care." The screen flickered off, and Garrick sat in stunned silence as the human battleship took position alongside the Nebula Serpent, guiding it toward the nearest FTL gate. The fear that had gripped him so tightly since the beginning of this journey began to loosen, replaced by a strange sense of admiration. Humans were fierce, yes, dangerous even, but they were also protectors, resourceful and quick to act when needed. They weren't the mindless brutes he had imagined. They were something far more complicated and far more impressive. As they neared the gate, Garrick looked out at the stars beyond, his perspective on humans beginning to shift. Maybe, just maybe, they weren't the monsters he had feared. As the Nebula Serpent passed through the FTL gate, Garrick felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. He had survived the pirate attack, thanks to the swift intervention of Lieutenant Orin and the Earth Defense Fleet. The humans had proven themselves to be more than the terrifying beings he had always imagined. They were efficient, decisive, and above all, protective. Still, the idea of setting foot on Earth itself was a different matter entirely. The stories of Earth's extreme environments, unpredictable wildlife, and chaotic human cities continued to churn in his mind. Even though his interactions with Maya Sarah, and now Orin, had been surprisingly positive, Garrick couldn't shake the lingering unease that came with landing on a world as infamous as Earth. The ship's descent toward the planet was smooth, and soon the sprawling cityscape of New Sydney came into view. From the cockpit, Garrick could see the vibrant mix of towering skyscrapers, vast industrial complexes, and lush green parks woven into the fabric of the city. It was a chaotic blend of nature and technology, unlike anything he had seen on other worlds. "New Sydney Spaceport is ready for our arrival," Kira informed him. "You will need to go through the standard customs and inspection process before unloading the cargo." Garrick sighed, mentally preparing himself for what was to come. He had been dreading this moment since accepting the Earth route, but there was no turning back now. The ship's landing gear engaged with a soft thud as they touched down at the bustling spaceport, and Garrick could already feel the energy of the place buzzing around him. The cargo bay doors hissed open, and Garrick stepped onto the platform, his senses immediately assaulted by the sights and sounds of New Sydney. Humans and aliens alike moved in every direction, engaged in a constant flow of activity. Shuttles zipped overhead, and the scent of unfamiliar food wafted through the air. The noise was deafening compared to the quiet serenity of space. As Garrick stood there, trying to adjust to the chaos, a familiar voice called out from behind him. "Welcome to Earth, Captain." It was Sarah, the upbeat human engineer he had met at Triton's station. She waved at him as she approached, Her face lit up with the same contagious energy she had shown before. "Glad to see you made it in one piece." "Sarah," Garrick said, managing a small smile despite his nerves. "I wasn't sure I would, to be honest." Sarah laughed, patting him on the back in a way that nearly knocked the wind out of him. "Well, you've survived the hardest part, getting here. The rest is easy." Garrick wasn't so sure about that. As he looked around the spaceport, he couldn't help but feel out of place. Humans moved with purpose, seemingly at ease in their chaotic environment, while Garrick felt like he was constantly one step away from being overwhelmed. Sarah must have noticed his discomfort, because she gave him a sympathetic smile. "I know it's a lot to take in, but trust me, Earth's not as bad as you think. You just have to get used to the rhythm of the place." "The rhythm?" Garrick asked, his brow furrowing. "Yeah," Sarah said, gesturing around them. "Earth's a bit unpredictable, but that's part of what makes it special. It's alive, you know. Things don't always go according to plan, but we humans have learned to adapt. That's what we do best." Garrick found himself nodding, though he still felt uneasy. "I suppose that's true. You've certainly adapted to, well, everything." Sarah grinned, her eyes sparkling with pride. "Exactly. And you'll see, once you spend a bit more time here, it's not just the danger that defines Earth. It's the creativity, the resilience, and the way we work together to solve problems. Sure, we've got our challenges, but that's what makes us stronger." As Sarah spoke, Garrick began to understand what she meant. Humans had thrived on this planet because they embraced its unpredictability. They had found a way to not just survive, but excel in an environment that would have driven most species to extinction. Their ingenuity and adaptability were the real reason they were so feared and so admired. Before he could respond, a new voice interrupted their conversation. "Captain Garrick, you were expected at customs." Garrick turned to see a tall human official, dressed in the formal uniform of the Spaceport's Customs Division. She was stern but not unfriendly, and she gestured for him to follow her. "We'll need to inspect your cargo and paperwork." "Of course," Garrick replied, his anxiety flaring up again. He shot a nervous glance at Sarah. "Don't worry," Sarah said with a wink. "I'll be around if you need anything. Just go with the flow, and you'll be fine." Garrick nodded, though he wasn't entirely convinced. As he followed the customs official through the spaceport, he couldn't help but feel like he was walking into a trap. Earth was still a mystery to him, and the stories of danger and chaos kept replaying in his mind. The customs process was surprisingly efficient. The human officials moved quickly, scanning his cargo and reviewing his documents with the precision of well-practiced professionals. Despite his initial worries, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The cargo was cleared without incident, and Garrick was given the green light to complete his delivery. As he made his way back to the ship to oversee the unloading, Garrick felt a strange sense of relief. He had expected Earth to be a nightmare, filled with danger at every turn, but so far things had been manageable. The humans were not the savages he had feared, nor was their world the inhospitable wasteland he had imagined. In fact, there was a certain charm to the place, an energy that was hard to describe but impossible to ignore. Sarah reappeared as the cargo crates were being unloaded, her cheerful demeanor once again putting Garrick at ease. "See, I told you it wouldn't be so bad," she said, giving him a playful nudge. "I'll admit it's been different than I expected," Garrick said, smiling a little. Sarah beamed. "That's the spirit, and who knows? Maybe next time you'll even want to stay a little longer. There's a lot more to Earth than just the spaceports, you know." Garrick chuckled, shaking his head. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, one trip at a time." As the last of the cargo was unloaded, Garrick stood by the Nebula Serpent, looking up at the city of New Sydney beyond the spaceport. For the first time since he had taken on this job, he felt a flicker of curiosity about the planet and about the humans who called it home. They were still dangerous, still unpredictable, but there was something more to them, something that intrigued him in a way he hadn't expected. Maybe, just maybe, Earth wasn't the death trap he had feared. As Garrick watched the last crate being unloaded from the nebulous serpent, a sense of accomplishment washed over him. He had done it. He had completed the Earth route, survived the journey, evaded pirates, and even set foot on the infamous human world without falling prey to its dangers. Yet, as much as relief filled him, something else stirred in the back of his mind: curiosity. Humans were not what he had expected. Every encounter he had, from Lieutenant Oren's calm authority to Sarah's infectious optimism, challenged everything he thought he knew about this species. Earth, too, was not the savage, untamed wilderness he had feared. It was chaotic, sure, but there was life and vibrancy here that Garrick couldn't ignore. The day had passed quickly, with the bustling spaceport humming with constant activity. Sarah had stuck around, offering her help wherever she could, and Garrick found himself oddly comforted by her presence. As the sun began to set over New Sydney, casting long shadows across the city's skyline, Garrick realized he wasn't in as much of a hurry to leave as he once had been. "You know," Sarah said, leaning against the side of the ship with a grin, "most traders who come here for the first time are itching to get off-world the moment they land. You don't seem as eager to bolt." Garrick glanced at her, unsure how to respond. "I guess I'm just surprised. Earth isn't what I expected." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Oh, what did you expect? Wild animals waiting to pounce. Volcanoes erupting every 5 minutes." Garrick chuckled, though a part of him had thought exactly that. "Something like that, but it's more alive than I thought. I see why you humans love it here." Sarah smiled warmly, her eyes twinkling with pride. "Yeah, Earth's got a lot of heart. It may not be the easiest place to live, but that's what makes it worth it. We've built something here, something unique, and it's not just about survival. It's about thriving, creating, and making the most of what we have." Garrick found himself nodding, though he was still processing everything he had seen. The humans weren't just resilient, they were resourceful, adaptive, and fiercely protective of one another. They thrived in environments that would break most species, yet they did so with a sense of purpose and determination that was hard to ignore. Sarah's voice softened, breaking his train of thought. "You know, Garrick, you don't have to be afraid of us. We're not perfect, but we're not the monsters people make us out to be." "I see that now," Garrick admitted, "but it's hard to let go of the stories, the rumors. You hear so many things about humans, about Earth. It's hard not to be scared." Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I get it. The galaxy's full of stories, and we humans have earned our reputation in a lot of ways. But the thing is, we're more than just the worst parts of ourselves. You've seen that today. We're survivors, but we're also builders, explorers, and, dare I say it, dreamers." Garrick smiled at her words, feeling a warmth he hadn't expected. She was right. The humans were far more complex than the terrifying caricatures he had imagined. They were dangerous, yes, but not in the way he had feared. Their strength came from their ability to adapt, to overcome, and to face challenges head-on with a kind of fierce determination that was inspiring. "Maybe I've been wrong about humans," Garrick said quietly, almost to himself. Sarah gave him a knowing smile. "Happens to the best of us. But hey, now you've got your own story to tell." Garrick paused, looking out over the bustling spaceport. For the first time, he realized that he didn't want to leave just yet. There was so much more to learn, so much more to understand about this planet and its people. But his duty as a trader called him back. His cargo was delivered, and his job was done. The Earth route, as terrifying as it had been, was now behind him. He could go back to the safer, quieter routes of the galaxy, far away from the unpredictability of humans. Yet something tugged at him, a pull he hadn't felt before. He turned to Sarah, who was watching him with a curious look. "What would you say if I told you I might take this route again?" Sarah's face lit up with surprise and excitement. "You? Mister, I'll never set foot on Earth again, really." Garrick chuckled, feeling a bit of the tension leave his body. "Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm starting to see the appeal." Sarah's grin widened. Well, I'd say that's the best news I've heard all day. We could use more traders like you, someone willing to take a chance on Earth. Garrick smiled, feeling something shift within him. Maybe the stories he had heard about humans weren't entirely wrong, but they were incomplete. The danger was real, but so was the opportunity. The fear was justified, but so was the admiration. He realized that humans, for all their complexities and contradictions, were worth understanding. And if there was one thing they had taught him during this journey, it was that fear should never stop you from moving forward. Garrick looked back at the nebulous serpent, the ship that had been his home for so long. For the first time in his career as a trader, he wasn't just thinking about the next safe route. He was thinking about what else he could learn, what other stories Earth had to offer. Well, Garrick said, glancing at Sarah with a new sense of resolve, I guess I'll be seeing you again soon. Sarah laughed and slapped him on the back, her smile as bright as ever. I'll be here. And trust me, you haven't seen the half of what Earth has to offer. As Garrick boarded his ship and prepared to leave Earth's orbit, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of satisfaction. He had faced his fears, survived the dangers, and come out the other side with a new perspective on the galaxy's most unpredictable species. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were also incredible.